Hi, everyone. I just wanted to talk briefly about that bonus that I mentioned in the other video about thinking about this particular research in the time of a pandemic. So I'll offer just a couple reflections on what has been happening because we have continued the research. So in March, when the school building closed, we continued doing the work of observations online and talking to parents and teachers, doing Zoom conversations. So we continued doing that. And there were definitely a few things that came up as that new mode of instruction was taking place, and that we're very interested in seeing where it goes for the fall. Um, so, two things really that I just wanted to talk about. The first one is that a lot of the families that we work with, who are immigrant families coming from Brazil, experience some socioeconomic hardships, right? So, when the pandemic hit, a lot of families lost, the primary caregiver, maybe lost the job, or the main breadwinner lost the job, or the jobs were significantly reduced, because a lot of, especially the women and the mothers, were doing cleaning work or babysitting or nanny or cashiers. And so a lot of these reduced. So they were really trying to think about how to have, a stable home, that you could pay the bills, keep your electricity going, pay rent, do all of those things, right? So that was the first piece that was definitely complicated. This piece was also complicated by the fact that once you need internet, not only the devices, which most of the schools distributed, is having a large enough data plan that would allow for multiple devices being connected and streaming and all of that happening at the same time with parental supervision. So those things were complicating issues, right, for a lot of these families. However, the other side of this that became really interesting is that the teachers had a little bit more leeway in terms of organizing small groups, and they could actually, thinking about the language status and children's rights status, right, they were really able to cater to that. And that meant that sometimes the groups that they would do in the classroom now weren't exactly the same as they were doing online, because they knew the time was reduced, that they knew that their shot was those 20 to 30 minutes that day, right? That they wanted to be in the students' homes and all of that. So it was interesting to see how the teachers were really able to be creative and have this adaptability to go into what each child needed, versus a lot of what they were having to roll out with scheduling in person, which had the blocks, right? The English block and the Portuguese literacy block, and then the specials that were all in English, and then the announcements, and the most of them were still in English. So, but in this moment, they were able to really think with the children in Portuguese, and the parents responded to this really well and felt very involved. And perhaps in a long time, they felt that they were understanding a lot of the lessons and the teaching that was happening with their children. So it's been really interesting to think about, what does that mean in terms of flexibility, to think about groupings within these large classes that will take into account what children know and what they bring to the table, and also to think about their funds of knowledge, and what we are also calling these political funds of knowledge, right, of kind of understanding your own identity and your background, and what does that mean for what you bring to the classroom for a lot of these children in a moment, right, that we see there's a lot of discourse that can feel anti-immigrant, that can feel very separating, also because there's bans in terms of traveling because of COVID-19, and then all of these relationships that are usually a lot closer to children who have come from Brazil or other countries are now a lot more strained. So teachers are all trying to think about all of these factors, and it's incredibly hard, but it's really interesting for us to reflect on. If we keep the framework of language policy, right, and rights, to think about, if we have that framework, what does that mean in our day-to-day work? And for us as research, for you all in administration, teaching, and doing other things in education. So these are some of our current reflections. I look forward to hearing from you, what your thoughts are, what you think about all of this. And do drop me a line or send me an email. All right. Thank you so much again for having me.